Hey there, welcome to this training. I'm Jenna from the Sulum team, and I'm so excited you're here because I know you're about to get so much value out of what we're covering today. All right, so let's dive into this. Today we're talking about how to hire a virtual assistant in 2026. And I gotta tell you, this is not your typical how to hire remote help training. Like if you've been thinking about hiring a VA, or maybe you've already tried and it didn't work out the way you hoped, you're in the right place. Here's the thing nobody's really talking about right now. The virtual assistant industry just hit $6.5 billion, and it's projected to reach, over $43 billion by 2035. That's massive growth, right? But here's what's actually happening behind those numbers. Most business owners are making the same three mistakes that guarantee failure before they even start. And we're going to break those down today. So by the end of this lesson, you're going to understand what actually works in 2026 when it comes to virtual support, what the industry doesn't want you to know about how VAs are really operating, and why the old way of hiring remote help is costing you way more than just money. Okay, so let's start with something that's going to sound a little harsh, but you need to hear this. If you've been on Instagram or TikTok lately, you've probably seen those perfectly curated day in the life of a VA videos, right? The iced matcha, the aesthetic home office, the Notion dashboards that look like works of art, and captions like $10,000 a month from home with all the sparkly emojis. Here's the uncomfortable truth. That aesthetic is shaping completely unrealistic expectations for both sides of the hiring equation. According to a January 2026 industry report, business owners now believe that VAs can run their entire business for $6 to $9 an hour, that one person can do everything from admin to social media to bookkeeping, and that it should all just work smoothly from day one with zero training. That's not reality. That's content, and it's setting you up for massive disappointment. Here's what's actually happening in the trenches. A huge portion of VAs in the Philippines, Latin America, and South Africa come from call center backgrounds. And I mean environments where breaks were timed to the minute, bathroom trips were monitored, every word was scripted, and performance was measured down to the second. These workers are transitioning into VA roles, recovering from burnout. They're skilled, they're capable, but they've been operating in systems that treated them like a number. So when they start working with business owners who expect them to just figure everything out independently with no structure, zero clear priorities, and just perform magic, that's not a VA problem. That's a systems problem. And this is where Sulum operates differently. We don't just match you with a person and say good luck. We match you with what we call a virtual systems architect, someone who documents processes as they work, someone who builds systems around what you're already doing so that you're not recreating the wheel every single time you need something done. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about why the traditional VA model is actually costing you more than you think. All right, so here's a stat that should make you pause. Most independent VAs don't work for just one client. They work for five or more at the same time. And this isn't because they're trying to build a portfolio or, diversify their income for fun. It's because one client usually isn't stable enough financially to depend on. So they're juggling five clients, five different communication styles, five different sets of deadlines, five completely different expectations, all at once. Now, think about what that means for you as the business owner paying for their time. Even the most talented person hits a ceiling when they're context switching between five different businesses every day. Tasks get dropped. Availability becomes inconsistent. One week they're super responsive, the next week they disappear for 3 days because someone else's deadline took priority. And you're left wondering, wait, where did they go? I thought they worked for me. According to the 2026 Virtual Assistant Trends Report from Conguesto, this multi-client overload is the #1 driver of performance inconsistency. Not skill, not work ethic, but structure, or the lack of it. Now, here's the other side of this. Most VAs are self-taught. They learn on YouTube. They learn through trial and error with real clients, which is great for hustle, right? But it also means when you hire someone, you're often their testing ground. You hire them for admin work, and by month 2, they're managing your CRM, editing videos, designing social graphics, running email sequences, none of which was in the original job description, and nobody's clear on whether they actually know how to do any of that stuff. So what happens? Mistakes, dropped balls, frustration on both sides. And here's the thing most agencies won't tell you. When you go with the cheapest option, you're not saving money. You're paying for retraining every 3 to 6 months when that person burns out or gets poached by a better paying client. The real cost isn't the hourly rate. It's the turnover. It's the time you spend re-onboarding someone new. It's the lost momentum every single time you have to start over. This is where the pro-Sulum model flips the script. Our virtual systems architects work full-time with 1 or 2 clients max. They're not juggling 5 businesses. They're not context switching every 30 minutes. They're embedded in your operations, building systems as they go. So when they complete a task, there's documentation, there's a process, there's something you own that doesn't walk out the door if they leave. But even that doesn't matter if you hire wrong from the start. So let's talk about the hiring process itself and why most businesses are screening for the wrong things. Okay, here's a number that should terrify you. 8 out of 10 VA hires fail within the first 90 days. Not because the VA wasn't capable, not because the business owner was unreasonable, but because the screening process was fundamentally broken from the start. Most VA agencies do what I call resume roulette. They look at a resume, do a quick interview, maybe check a reference, and boom, you're matched with someone. There's no skills verification. There's no reliability testing. There's no way to know if this person actually shows up on time, communicates clearly, or can handle ambiguity. And then you're surprised when it doesn't work. Here's what's happening in 2026, according to the latest data. Only about 8% of job postings on LinkedIn are remote, but those remote roles attract 35% of all applications. So there's this massive supply-demand mismatch. Everyone wants remote work, but very few people are actually trained to operate independently in a remote environment without constant oversight. That gap is what causes the disasters. At Sulum, we use what we call a 6-tier hiring process. And this is not, just for show. This is our competitive moat. Tier 1 is something we call the landmine form. It's a commitment test, and it eliminates 75% of candidates right out of the gate. Because if someone can't follow detailed instructions in an application, they're definitely not going to follow them when they're working for you. Tiers 2 through 6 involve progressive skill building, systems documentation training, direct work experience with our internal team, evaluation by account managers, certification process. By the time someone reaches a client, they're in the top 1 to 2% of applicants. Now, compare that to the typical VA marketplace, where the only barrier to entry is uploading a resume. The difference isn't just quality control, it's predictability. It's knowing that the person you're working with has been vetted, not just for skills, but for reliability, communication, and the ability to operate without constant supervision. And here's the other part most people miss. It's not just about hiring the right person, it's about giving them the right setup. If you hire someone amazing but give them no clear priorities, no documentation, no systems, they're still going to fail. And you're going to blame them when really the failure was in your onboarding. That's why at Sulum, we don't just hand you a person, we help you set up the structure so they can actually win. We use what we call the 5-minute video method. You record a quick video of any process in your business, the VSA watches it, documents it, builds an SOP around it, and now you have a system that can be repeated by anyone. That's not task execution, that's systems architecture, and that's the difference between a VA who saves you a few hours a week and a VSA who actually scales your operations.
All right, so let's talk about the shift that's happening, right now in 2026.
For years, the standard model was hire a VA, they work part-time, they juggle multiple clients, and you just accept inconsistency as the trade-off for affordability. But that model is breaking fast. According to the latest industry reports, VAs themselves are rejecting the multi-client grind. They want stability, they want training, they want a career path, not just gig work that disappears when one client gets bored. And business owners are reaching the same conclusion from the other side. They don't just want help, they want accountability. They want someone who's actually integrated into their team, not just checking in twice a week. That's why near-shore full-time teams in places like Latin America are becoming the next evolution of remote staffing. Same time zones, real-time collaboration, bilingual professionals who operate like actual team members, not task assistants. And here's the thing. When someone works full-time for you in your time zone with predictable hours and actual onboarding, the experience shifts from I hired a VA to I have a team member. That's what we've been building at Sulum for over a decade. We've worked with over 40 industries, we've placed hundreds of virtual systems architects, and we've figured out what actually works. Dedicated support, process documentation, and real integration, not task help. Systems architecture. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, Jenna, this all sounds great, but I don't even know where to start. My business is chaos. I don't have systems documented. I can't even explain what I need help with because everything's in my head. If that's you, you're the perfect candidate for this model because the VSA doesn't need you to have it all figured out. They help you figure it out. They work alongside you, document what you're doing, and turn your brain into repeatable processes. All right, so let's bring this all together. Here's what we covered today. The Instagram aesthetic is selling you a fantasy that sets you up for failure. The multi-client VA model is structurally broken and costing you way more than you realize in turnover and lost momentum. Most hiring processes screen for the wrong things, which is why 80% of VA hires fail in 90 days. And the industry is shifting toward full-time, near-shore, integrated support models, because that's what actually works in 2026. Now, here's the bigger picture. If you're a business owner stuck in the day-to-day grind, drowning in repetitive tasks, frustrated because every time you try to hire help, it either doesn't work out or it creates more work for you to manage them, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. The traditional VA industry sold you a broken model and told you it was your job to make it work. But here's the opportunity. The virtual systems architect model at Sulum flips that. We match you with dedicated professionals who document processes as they work. We handle the vetting, the training, the onboarding structure, and we do it at roughly half the cost of an in-house hire. So, if this hit a nerve, you already know why. Here's what I want you to do. Click the link in the description below and book a free discovery call with our team. It's at instant.myprosulum.com. No pressure, no hard sell, just an honest conversation about where you're stuck, what you've tried, and whether a virtual systems architect could actually solve the problem you're dealing with right now. Because here's the thing. The business you're building deserves systems. It deserves leverage. And you deserve to stop being the bottleneck. That's what we do at Sulum. We help you clone yourself through process documentation so your business can scale without you working more hours. All right, that's it for today's training. I'm Jenna from Sulum. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.